Hello, everybody, and welcome to Representing a Landlord, doing a listing up on behalf of a landlord. Today's presentation, we're going to record. If you do have any questions, I'd ask you to just kind of write them down, jot them down. We can go back in and answer afterwards. I would like to do a clean presentation for our Excel training platform so that it is as efficient and short as possible with a little editing. So representing a landlord on a listing. When I was doing the presentation and getting everything ready for today, I realized that this presentation is probably the most intense presentation that we could do when it comes to representation, whether you're purchasing, representing a tenant, representing the landlord. Representing a landlord in a lease transaction has a lot of multifaceted situation scenarios, which means that you can be put into many different scenarios based on whether it be the building that you're renting, the landlord that you're representing, the changes to the Landlord Tenant Act, the tenants that are applying. So what I want to do today is I want to go through the procedures and paint a bit of a picture so we can really talk about this from a common sense perspective and be able to think on your feet. It's really important when representing a landlord and or tenant for that matter, to be able to think on your feet, use your resources at the office, your management team, any legal resources, especially paralegals like Beta that does our landlord tenant presentations. And we have a lot of information available both on the Excel platform in terms of courses and videos, as well on YouTube that we've pre-recorded in the past. This one will be up there as well. But I want to go through a typical scenario. Today's agenda, I'm going to be really understanding the process of representing a landlord and the different processes that you will need to go through. As well, talk about a landlord presentation, which we haven't done in the past. We've done seller presentations, buyer presentations. We even have a tenant presentation, but now we have a landlord presentation. So I'm going to take you through that and talk about different things we suggest making sure that you go over with the landlord. We are going to be bringing up Residential Tenancy Act. As you know, it's pretty in depth, the Residential Tenancy Act, but it's important that both a landlord and a tenant are aware of the act and the different components of it, where to get information and forms, and how to properly deal with situations as they arise. Then just looking at Skyslope in our templates, we have provided as much information within our templates to make it as smooth process as humanly possible when it comes to representing a landlord. And then, of course, having a client for life and getting referrals. We all know that this is not something we do when we're representing landlords and tenants that is income driven. Okay, it's not because we're going to make lots of money doing this. In fact, you can have a full-time job for the next 12 months representing 10 listings, making about $30,000 a year and working 40 hours a week. It really is intense. So you are not going to be making a lot of money, but what you are going to be doing is creating quality relationships, advocates within the industry. And I'll talk more about that as we go through, but keep that as a mindset throughout the process of working with a landlord, that you're not doing this for the money. However, you're going to be spending some money as well as some time and effort on this in order to really impress the client. So you get repeat business and referrals from your client. And that's where the money's being made. That's where the business plan is coming into place. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the process, and I'm going to paint this picture for you. I know it doesn't look like a picture on the screen. It's just 13 different steps, but I want you to think about this as I walk you through it. Okay. And we're going to start off with a client calling you. They're going to ask you to list their place for rent. You're going to qualify them, and you're going to probably do that over the phone. Ask them a bunch of questions. Oh, tell me about the rental. Ask some questions such as, have you rented before? How many bedrooms? What are you looking to get in terms of rent? How long are you looking to rent it for? Is this your only rental property? You really want to qualify them over the phone at that point in time. Okay. Number 3, you are going to research the property and do a market evaluation. Okay. It's going to be a little different than the market evaluation that you would typically do on a listing. right? You may not do adjustments and all this sort of tough stuff, but what you will do is look at what market rents are. And then you're going to book a 2-hour window to sit with them and do a proper presentation and bring the paperwork. Make sure that you're ready to sign them up and get the ball rolling. After you've done that, you're going to prepare the property for showings. So similar to a listing that you've done in the past, or maybe not, maybe it's your first listing, you want to make sure you impress your client with the way the house shows. Every situation is different and unique, but you should put together some sort of presentation and marketable series of events that you're going to take them through. So it could be that you're going to take pictures through a professional photographer. I know a lot of you will do rentals through an iPhone because, again, there's not a lot of money to be made on rentals. So you're trying to minimalize that. But I'm going to get to that in a minute, but you are going to make that decision as to how that property is going to be shown. Then you list the property, right? You fill in all the proper paperwork, the MLS data sheet, and you get that onto the market. You're going to take in offers and applications, right? So you're going to have certain things on the MLS listing that you're asked for, right? So bring credit check application, proof of income, that sort of thing. So you're going to take in those up. You're going to probably accept one of them. If there's multiple, you're going to be in multiple offers, but you're going to accept an offer. And that is going to be conditional upon an application review. I'm going to show you Schedule B today, how we're going to put in a little different clause in all our Schedule Bs that basically says you have 24 hours to check their references and their credit worthiness, etc. And that if everything else is done, you don't actually have to fill in a waiver of fulfillment. But that's in Schedule B, and that becomes a firm deal. But we want to make sure we give that 24 hours at least on a conditional period to check the credit worthiness of the client. You're going to verify all those references, income, credit worthiness. You're going to firm up the deal with the notice of fulfillment, a waiver if you put a condition in. We're actually looking at doing, and I'm going to show you it today, a clause that you won't need that notice of fulfillment, a waiver. But if you do need to do notice of fulfillment, because there are conditions in there, you'll do that. As soon as you're firm and done, you are going to need to do an Ontario Residential Tenancy Agreement, the standard form. I'll show that to you today. That is in the templates in Skyslope. So I'm going to show you where to get all that. But you have an offer, you have an accepted offer, and then you need to fill out a standard form of lease. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then you're going to submit all the documentation to the office with a sales information sheet. Hopefully everything's done and submitted. If there's any deficiencies, of course, our office will remind you of those. And then you're going to obviously close up the deal and everything, but you're looking at after service care at this point. You've got a firm deal. What are you going to do moving forward to ask for testimonials, maybe do a yearly investment review every year, nurturing within our remarketer or your CRM system, put them on a newsletter program, do pop buys twice a year. So this is a whole client service care, and you should be doing with all your clients, including, and most importantly, your landlords and tenants, because this is an investment. You're doing representing a landlord as an investment to your future opportunities for repeat referral. So you have to make sure that that stuff is done to maximize your business plan. So this is the process. This is just painting the picture of what you're going to be going through when representing a landlord. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the landlord presentation. You can get this presentation using the Google Drive. If you know how to get into the Google Drive, great. If you're not sure, you can always log into Remarketer, go into the brokerage hub and click on Google Drive. You're going to search in there for landlord presentation, and there is a folder for that. I'm going to show you that now. Get in there and show you the landlord presentation. The Residential Tenancy Act brochure. Okay, we're going to talk about that because it's going to be one of the forms or one of the things you do need to provide a landlord with. It's available in that folder, but it's also available on Skyslope, so not a problem there as well. But let's pretend that you're logged into your Century 21 Google. You're going to go over to the right-hand side, and you're going to click on Heritage Remarketer. You're going to log into Remarketer, because you want to get on our drive to get the presentation. You're going to go into the brokerage hub, and you're going to do the Google Drive, Heritage Google Drive. course, it's asking because I'm not logged in as my Century 21, which is a great way to show you how to log in as your Century 21. There we go. Now I'm in the Heritage Agents Drive. I said to search for, what I say, landlord presentation. And there's the folder for landlord presentation, and this is the PowerPoint presentation as well as the guide to the Residential Tenancy Act. So I'm going to click on landlord presentation, and let's go through the slideshow. We put this together again as a template. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want, actually, I'm going to show you, go to File, make a copy of the entire presentation, and then that will give you your own copy. Okay, so you can make a copy, you can call it Aaron's copy of the landlord presentation. And I'm going to save that in my own folder so that you guys don't see that one. And this is what you would do as well, because you won't have access to save it on our folders, but I'll just save it to my own drive. Select, save, make a copy. Okay, and then you will have your own copy, and that will be editable. That will allow you to put your own name in it and change any of the information that's in there. Okay, so you can put your first, last name, and it just like that. Okay, and let's start the slideshow. So I am not going to go through the slideshow the way that you should with your client, because it would take about an hour to explain everything. What I'm going to do is explain why each slide is there, and then we'll move through it fairly quickly. Talk about yourself. Talk about your office, the team of individuals, and the connections and network connections across Ontario that we do have. Our global reach, especially when you're representing a landlord, we have the global brand and global reach. So when, let's say, landed immigrants are coming into Canada, or maybe they're looking throughout Ontario for a lease, and they're coming from a different country, this is why it's so important that you're working with us. The commitment, and just in here, have your commitment, right? I added a few things here to provide knowledge and guidance in the listing process, to find you a qualified tenant, to protect you from pitfalls and minimize legal risk, and to establish a long-term relationship, and to be your realtor for life, not just the transaction. So a few questions, and I'll go through these questions and hit on the notables. You want to find out more about their experience as being a landlord. Do they know anything about the Residential Tenancy Act? If they're going to be a landlord, they need to know this. Okay, are you familiar with the landlord forms available on the website tribunalsontario.ca? That is a great website to click on, say you're a landlord, and there's all the forms they would need to fill in if somebody's not paying for rent, or they damage the property, or you need to give notice, etc. Tell me about the future of your rental property. Are you using this for 5 years? Are you flipping it? Are you looking for a long-term situation? So it's good to know. Have you done a safety audit of your home? Local fire departments will come in and do a safety audit at no charge, right? They'll check your, just and give you suggestions on how to make sure the house is safe. I think it's really important. We are talking today about renting a house. I do want to touch on basement apartments and the fact that basement apartments, if you're working with them, should be legalized. They should be set up with the town, make sure the town knows that they're there, and legalized for safety reasons. Do you have a rental insurance policy? It's important that your insurance company does know it's a rental. If they don't know and something's to go wrong with the house and they find it was a rental, they may nullify your insurance policy. So make sure they're doing that. And have you rented this property before? Is it before 2018, after 2018? There are some stipulation, or there is rent control guidelines before 2018. After 2018, there is no rental guidelines in terms of increase in rental rates, right? So I'm not going to go into the weeds on that one because there's lots of different situations, and I'm sure we can talk about it later. Notables, okay? My job is to market the property and find you a qualified tenant. I cannot provide legal services. I don't give legal advice, okay? And you need to make sure they know that, because they're going to be asking you a lot of things with regards to the legality of certain situations. And you need to give them advice, but always tell them that they really should seek legal advice when it becomes a legal matter. I do not provide property management services. So I'm not going to be collecting rent. I'm not going to be doing, if something happens, somebody needs a, plumber and all that kind of stuff. But this is not the services we provide. I think it's really important. You tell them the difference between being representing to find a tenant and actual property management services. Okay. I'm unable to provide services that contradicts the Residential Tenancy Act. I can't, tell somebody, sorry, there is no pets allowed. I can't do that. What we can do is put certain things in place in order to try and find out if they have a pet and if the pet causes damage, but just things like that. I can't circumvent the act. Okay. And that's why it's important to know about the act. So, and that's why you'll want to explain it. Here's a few things from the excerpt from one of the brochures that you will be providing, and I'll get to them in a minute. But I explain what the Residential Tenancy Act is, any exceptions, and the role of the landlord. Okay. Landlord has the right to, and go through that. The landlord is responsible for. Landlord is not allowed to. And these are only a few things that are just pointed out. There is a larger brochure that I'm going to suggest, and it is going to be part of the mandatory forms. It is in Skyslope. Both forms that I'm going to be going over with regards to the Landlord Tenant Board are in there, in their brochures, and they're really meant to educate your landlord and, of course, tenants in the processes. Here's information of how to get in touch with the Landlord Tenant Board, as well, again, that tribunalsontario.ca for forms and resources. That's a really good website. That's usually where I put people towards. Okay, the brochure guide to the Residential Tenancy Act I'm going to provide as well. So I take that out of my briefcase and I hand it over, and that is available in Skyslope. We have the industry's most advanced online strategy. So how are you going to market their property? Obviously, MLS, through pictures and tours and virtual tours. I am going to suggest that everyone does minimum the spotlight marketing program for their listing. I know you're getting 1/2 of 1 month's rent, and I know it's $260 in tax plus fees and all this sort of stuff. You are not doing this for the income. You're doing this for the opportunity to build a relationship, impress somebody, and create advocates. Okay, if you don't show them how you would list a house professionally and really well on a listing of a house you're going to get $20,000 from, I wouldn't change your marketing just because you're getting $2,000. Okay, you're proving to them that you're good at what you do. So do the spotlight marketing program and go over, how you're going to make sure that they get the best quality tenant as well as get them the highest possible rent rate. Okay. Showcase your feature sheets, information packets, etc. Okay, there's a rental application that I use. It's provided by our board, and we are going to make sure that we check for references, check the credit, verify employment, and please make sure. I usually tell stories at this point in time during the presentation and let them know of stories when people have filled out these applications, handed in it to the realtor. It's never good to talk about bad about other realtors, but there's other situations that can happen where somebody takes in the application and says, oh, thank you very much. Here's the keys. You haven't verified. If the person that used to your warehouse, if their last landlord, was a reference, then check to make sure that last landlord owned that property and that is who they say they are. And you're not just getting a friend of theirs saying how great they are. So you need to verify references. You need to make sure the credit check was done properly. We've seen people white out and put different numbers in, right? So sometimes it's best maybe to get them to fill out and I've got this in here as well, an application to give the credit check permission to do the credit check and send it over to our friends at Centum and have them do it so that they can give you an idea of how their credit is, rather than providing a doctored form. Verify employment, call their employer, where do they work, etc. So these are things, and these are really the only things we can deny somebody rental on. So make sure that you do a great job on that. Our in-house credit check provided by Centum. Each of our offices has a Centum rep, see who yours is, and we just need the permission of the tenant. Okay, so it's actually on the application form. They sign the bottom for the permission to check credit. Okay. You will need to come up with market rents, right? So using Realm as an example, right? I can print off reports and I can show them what others are getting. That's what you're doing, market rent, right? So you are going to need to justify what you think you can get in rent, and that's how you do it. And I suggest in this case, 2,400. There is a standard form of lease. Even though we as realtors negotiate the terms of a lease, the Ontario government have come up with a standard form that everybody needs to sign because, and I know that there's certain things before and after 2018, everyone should sign a standard form of lease. We don't want to get into a situation where, you know, we misread or misinformed, but the purpose of it is so that the standard form really shows what they can and cannot do and to make sure everybody's on the same page. The problems you come or bump into when representing a landlord or being a landlord really comes from not disclosing or trying to hide something or doing something wrong, right? When somebody knows that, let's say they're in a basement apartment and it's not registered, they know they don't have to pay rent because they're going to use that against you, and the municipality they're going to call and they're going to get into a big fight and a legal battle, and then it's just not worth it, right? Do it the right way, and nothing should be apparent to take advantage of either side. So make sure that we go through the right process. And to be honest, that's why they're using you as a realtor. That's not why they're doing it themselves. They can probably easily find a renter these days by just putting it in the paper. Well, not the paper anymore, but putting it up on Facebook Marketplace or whatnot and get their own. But they're not going to get a quality tenant because we're not doing the whole process of finding a great tenant. And they don't have the time for that. That's why you're here. What is a real estate investment portfolio review? I think this is a great opportunity to say, listen, me as a realtor, I don't make, you know, my business doing rentals. That's not why I do this. I do this for you. I hope to build a relationship through, if you love my service, you're going to refer me to others. And one of the services I provide is every year, we're going to look at your properties. I'm going to give you a market evaluation where you're at and review your current assets. Potential investment opportunities. If you're interested for future rentals, I can provide you with those properties on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. You let me know. And do you know anybody who else is looking to buy or sell? Because that's really what I'm doing here. I'm providing you a great service, and I know you're going to love the service I'm providing. I'm just hoping you spread the word. I'm always here for your real estate needs. This is an important slide. And then even more value are we call discount loyalty programs that we have with different providers. So I give them that one-page list, and that's it. So that is an example of a presentation. It will take longer to do because I'll have lots of questions. You'll be going over a lot of things, but the presentation is there for you to use. So back over here. Let's go to the next section. And that is mandatory forms for a listing. Okay, here's the forms that you're gonna need to work with. Okay, they're all available on Skyslope, and I will go over there and log into Skyslope and utilize, you know, I guess the system to show you some of the forms and the ways to use it. It's really not meant to be a Skyslope information seminar. It's really to make sure that you know that they're there for you. And it's also available in web forms, but we're switching over to Skyslope. So here are the list of forms. You know, take a picture, write it down. A guide to the Residential Tenancy Act. So there is a brochure provided by the Landlord Tenant Board as both tenants and landlords need to know what their responsibility is, what they can and cannot do. That guide will help do that. So if you're talking to a landlord and they're not sure the Residential Tenancy Act, provide this guide. In fact, every situation should provide it to them so that they do know. You don't want a situation where they come back to you and say, you should have told me. Okay, so this protects you. It also protects them. Make sure you give them the guide to the Residential Tenancy Act. The next form is the other brochure that's also in there. It's called the Information for New Tenants. And I bet some of you didn't know that this is, as per the Act, mandatory that a landlord provides to a tenant. Tenant or landlord has to provide the information for new tenants brochure. So that's why we included it in here, so you can print it off and provide it to that tenant when they sign up. If they're represented by another realtor, don't assume that that realtor is going to provide them with that brochure. It's the landlord's responsibility. And agency disclosure. I wrote in agency disclosure because today it's called working with a realtor. Tress is coming December 1st, and realtor relationships are changing. We're going to have self-represented instead of customer service. So we want to make sure today it's working with a realtor. Tomorrow will be an agency disclosure form that is yet to be presented to us. So I just wanted to put that in there, that is mandatory. It is one of the RICO forms that 100% is mandatory in every transaction. The listing agreement, okay, that is the agreement to list the property, and that'll have the commissions in there. Typically 1 month's rent is standard, but and half of 1 month's rent go to the co-op and half of 1 month's rent goes to the listing. Schedule A and Schedule B. Okay, this has some thoughts and discussion. We feel from a company standpoint is best to help you and best to represent your interests by giving you a Schedule A, which we have done with the clauses that you should use within your lease agreement. Okay, so that's already pre-populated in Schedule A. Schedule B is there. We have to also have a Schedule B that has to do with your deposit. But we've also added a clause in Schedule B that states, and I'm going to read it to you in a minute, but it basically states that the offer is revocable for 24 hours if we don't like your credit. Okay, and what that means is it's not a condition that needs to be waived or fulfilled. It's a condition that we have for 24 hours that the landlord has to review the creditworthiness of the tenant. And should we have a problem, we'll let you know, and then we can void the deal. Okay, it's called a condition subsequent, if you can remember back in your courses you took with Humber or RIA for that matter. When you got licensed, there were 2 different types of conditions. This was one that will be fulfilled if you don't do anything. Okay, so that is available in there. We just wanted to make sure that we are protecting everyone in the brokerage that writes a deal that states that they would have time to check the creditworthiness. There's an MLS data sheet provided by either ITSO or TREB, depending on which board you're part of. If you're part of both and you want them on both boards, you'll fill out both MLS data sheets. The listing appointment information sheet, which is needed for our office to know how to direct showing requests and lockbox codes, etc. The Ontario Residential Tenancy Agreement. So that is the standard form that needs to be done when the deal's done. And I'm going to show you how to make sure that those two coincide with each other, the Ontario Residential Tenancy Agreement, as well as our agreement to lease. And then the sales information form, which we fill out or you fill out and give to our office to give us the details of the transaction so that our deal secretaries could go in and create the deal, as well as make sure that all commissions are taken care of. And then if you need any notices of fulfillment or waivers, because there was conditions, that would be needed as well, but that's only if you're going to need notice of fulfillment. Okay. The clause in Schedule B I was talking about, I do want to talk to you about it just to make sure everybody's aware of it. So this is what it says. This offer to lease is conditional upon the landlord satisfying himself concerning the personal and creditworthiness of the tenant. The tenant hereby consents to having the landlord conduct or cause to be conducted a personal and or credit investigation in respect to the tenant. In the event said investigation is not satisfactory to the landlord, this offer should become a null and void, and the deposit may be money shall be returned to the tenant in full without interest reduction. This condition shall be considered waived if no notification to the contrary has been issued to the landlord by 8:00 p.m. on the second business day after acceptance of the agreement to lease. So second business day. So it's actually given 2 business days to check the creditworthiness, which is great. It's better than 24. And that's what we've added into Schedule B. Okay, and that makes sure that they are given the opportunity, and it just becomes binding on itself. You do not actually have to provide anything in terms of a notice of fulfillment or waiver. Okay, but if there's a problem, then you can let them know that yes, there was a problem, and you're going to let them know that that you're not following through and you're voiding the agreement because of the creditworthiness. In terms of forms in Skyslope, when you log into Skyslope, and I will do that in a minute because I thought that was the best way to show you. I did do some screen captures just to show you the beginning situation with, you know, why are you creating the file, right? So you're starting a new file. I love Skyslope. I think it's a lot easier than web forms. File owners, myself, I've clicked the landlord. My client, Jason Bourne, his email, jason@treadstone.ca. How would you like to name the file? I put in 124 Bleecker Street. It's a lease listing. And then I would select Treb's residential freehold for lease representing the landlord. Of course, if you're doing a condo, you'll be doing a condo. If you're doing commercial, you do commercial. If you're part of ITSO, you'll be doing ITSO, etc. Okay, so now when you open up your Skyslope, you're going to have all your previous transaction information come up on your screen just like this. But you're going to hit create new file. Okay, I have already done one. Actually, I'm going to click on this one. It was the Park Avenue lease listing. So I'm going to use this as an example. I filled out the information just like I did on those slides. It created the template for me because we put these forms in for you. So you don't have to create your own templates. They're already in there for you. And now what I'm going to do is select the forms that I'm going to use in order to print off and use in my listing. Again, this is not meant to be a tutorial on Skyslope, so I'm going to go through fairly quickly and only point out certain things that that obviously are most important throughout the process. First of all, the first two forms are the guides. Okay, so the first one is a guide to the Residential Tenancy Act, and that's for all tenants and landlords, and you're going to give that to your landlord so that they can learn a little bit about the Tenancy Act. The second one is going to be information for new tenants. That's going to be handed to a new tenant, so I want to select those two. Working with a realtor brochure, as you know. Listing agreement, as you should know. The MLS data form, perfect. I'm not going to do a seller direction there. Schedule A and B, even though they're called the same, we're not allowed to name our forms in here, unfortunately, but this is the two schedules that I had talked about, and I do want to show those to you. So click on those. Listing appointment, of course. I'm going to skip over entry access right now and sign installation. However, if you do need a sign installed, you're going to click on that. So I'm going to click on it. Spotlight, yeah, sure, why not? I'm going to order Spotlight marketing on this one. Ontario Residential Tenancy Agreement, sorry. I'm going to click on there because I want you to see it. Sales info sheet, of course. Privacy, connections, discounts. I mean, you can really click on everything. If you're selling your own property and leasing your own property, etc., you want a disclosure there, so I'm not going to do that one. So pretty much there's a lot of forms in there, and I'm going to select them all and then move them pretty quickly, so don't worry. So fill out. I just want to point out the things that are maybe new to you, maybe you haven't seen before. The other stuff you should have seen because you all got licensed. However, if you need a refresher, we do have videos on most of these forms. So a guide to the Residential Tenancy Act. You probably haven't seen this before. And even if you've represented people in the past, this is where we get ourselves into the most trouble, okay, is not educating our landlords and tenants as to their responsibilities. When we have a problem is because somebody wasn't educated. So please make sure that you do provide this and ask them if they've read it over, because it's so important throughout the process that they know why you can and cannot do certain things. Okay, they talk about rent, all the increased guidelines, maintenance and repairs, what the responsibilities are, entering the rental unit, ending the tenancy, assigning or subletting, and again, ending the tenancy, reasons to evict, other reasons for eviction. So it's a really good brochure. Make sure you go through that. The information for new tenants has to be provided to the new tenant. I'm not going to go through all of it, but just know that it goes through the tenant's rights and responsibilities and what the landlord can and cannot do. Working with a realtor, you should know all about. Listing agreement, again, you should know about. The freehold MLS lease data form. Let's talk about Schedule B, right? That's there. We'll attach this to your listing, but this is Schedule B, right? We have our typical schedule clauses in there, but that one that I read out earlier is here as well. So that is the condition subsequent on the condition on credit check, okay? Then you've got Schedule A. The reason why we included Schedule A is we want your landlord and yourself to take into consideration providing the buyer with the clauses that they should be agreeing to. Okay. It's better than allowing the tenant to come up with the clauses. We've run into too many problems representing landlords where, unfortunately, we have uneducated agents out there that putting together lease deals that really have a tough time with it. So why not give it to them, right? Here are the clauses that we would like in there. Feel free to read through every single one with your landlord. Make sure that they agree to those clauses. You can always change them, add, remove. Again, that's, how we use Skyslope, is adding and removing clauses. But we feel strongly within our company that these are great clauses to use, and you should consider using them in every agreement. So there we go. There, it's all set for you already. When you do the MLS listing, right, back up in the broker comments on here, you can write in here remarks for brokerages. Please download Schedule A and B and include with your offer. That's it. That's all you have to do. The listing appointment information sheet. This is for our office to fill that in and how the showings are going to happen. Now, showings can be, of course, every situation is different. I'm keeping this simple, but you will run into situations where you're saying, oh, well, there's a tenant in there. And it's hard to show because the last tenant's still there and they are really not cooperative. Here's a little hint when it comes to a couple little things to consider. Okay, if you have a tenant in the house and you're trying to show the property, there's a few things. First of all, buy them something. I don't know, bring them a bake, pie, cake, Tim Hortons, whatever you want. Go in and say, listen, I just want to sit down and kind of go through the process. I'm helping them rent out this property to the next tenant. I really appreciate all the support you can give. I'll make it as simple as possible. What are times that you can't? You definitely cannot, they'll say I have kids, nothing past 7 o'clock, et cetera, et cetera. So work with them, but butter them up. You're going to be working with them to try and obviously leave the house in great shape. The other thing you may consider doing, especially to those who really don't want showings, is just to say, listen, how about this weekend? Is there any way that we could have all of Saturday to show the property? And then you'll have Saturday showings and have them all done at once and try and get as many prospective tenants in there all at the same time. There's different ways to work around it, but work with the tenants that are currently there, okay? Sign installation, pretty straightforward. The spotlight order form, again, if you're doing the virtual tour. Residential tenancy agreement. This is the residential tenancy agreement that has to be done after the deal's done. Now, the one thing I'm going to show, and I'm going to show it again in the presentation when we finish off here. But if you go down to, I think there's 14 pages. I'm just going to go down to just before right here. So it's page 6 of 14. Right here, the tenancy agreement includes an attachment with additional terms that the landlord and tenant agree to. What that means is this is the lease and the attachment is your agreement to lease. Okay, that's what you check mark so that the two binds into one, really, right? You've got your residential tenancy agreement that has an attachment to it, which is our lease agreement that we did on our RIA forms. Okay. That's how you put the two together. So just make sure that check mark's done. And of course, your sales agent sales information sheet. The deal, our deal secretaries that enter in the information would really love me to spend a little bit of time just making sure that they know the importance of filling this in completely. They're not there in order to try and ascertain information and find it somewhere within your paperwork. So if there's a further deposit, for example, then you need to put it here. What you ended up in terms of the agreement should be put here. When's the closing date? It needs to be filled in 100%, because if it's not, it makes their job a lot harder when they're entering in the information into the system. It really backlogs it. So make sure that you fill that out completely. Your privacy. Okay, obviously some people these days are really concerned about this. I think everyone is. However, we want to make sure to explain their privacy. And the connections program, so the discount programs that we do have as well. So these are all the forms, print them out, fill them in. take them with you on that presentation, and you'll be all set. Some of them are mandatory throughout the process. They'll come in later, such as maybe, things like, the schedules, etc., and all the rest. But it's good to have them in there, and save it, right? So get them ready for when you are going to use it. So you prepare it for print or signature, and you're all set. I am going to just move back over to the presentation for a second. And I did include in the presentation that page 6 of 14 on the residential tenancy forms, just to make sure that you do check mark the tenancy agreement includes the attachment additional terms. One of the questions that does come up with regards to this form, this residential tenancy form that's a standard form, is who prepares it. Okay. I believe it's the responsibility of the landlord's representative and the landlord to present this to a tenant. Okay. You will have the buyer rep or the tenant rep sometimes do this up. However, again, it needs to be done, and it needs really to be provided by the landlord. Okay, so I think this is a good practice. After service. So you've done the deal, you've filled all the information, you've negotiated a deal, everything's come together. There's gonna be a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things like, the day of closing, who hands over the keys? Do we do a walkthrough of the home? And these are all good points, and good things to make sure, handing over the deposit or pre-done checks, or however that is going to be administered, whether it's e-transfers, checks, that sort of thing. But, when it's all said and done, okay, the reason why we're doing this for our clients is to build our business and relationships. Okay. And we can't do that without after service care. You've just done a deal. They were super happy. Everyone wants to give you a referral and a testimonial, but you forget about them and you don't ask for it. And don't remind them, and you don't continue to build that relationship. So 6 to 8 months down the road, when their neighbor's looking to sell the house and they think, who is a good realtor? They kind of forgot about you. There was another realtor that popped into their network, and they decide to give them the referral. This is the most important part of any business plan for a real estate agent, is the relationship building stuff. So I really put a lot of emphasis on this. So make sure that you're using a CRM. Currently, we're providing Remarketer as a great sphere of influence CRM. So there are a lot of CRMs out there, but when it comes to the sphere of influence, market stats, staying in touch, tasks and reminders and everything, Remarketer does such a great job of it. You don't need to really go anywhere else, but make sure you're using a CRM. Ask for the testimonial. We do automate that process through the testimonial tree, but if you haven't logged in, log into testimonial tree, send some out. If you some requests for testimonials, past clients, maybe somebody didn't fill one in and you need to remind them or call them, or put it on your social media. It's a full system. So look at testimonial tree. Consistent nurturing, making sure that you're turning on that nurturing program. It's going to touch about 24 times a year with monthly newsletters, as well as things like special occasions. If you know their birthday, put their birthday in there. Do you have a customer loyalty program? We have a loyalty program for discounts. I call them discounts, but I got told the other day it's better to call a loyalty program than a discount program. But essentially, it gives discounts on different things like moving companies, etc. Printed newsletter program, again, something that goes to the door and is printed every month and automated for you. We have that available with the Spotlight newsletter program. Pop buys, quarterly calls, that once a year real estate portfolio review. And don't forget, throughout this whole process of chatting and popping by and everything, and just saying, hey, if you ever know anybody who's looking to buy and sell, would you consider referring me? And of course, thanking people for referrals. This is how the business, this is how the top agents run their business. Any top agent I talk to is, where's your organized CRM? I do this. This is a whole journey that they take sellers through, buyers through, landlords through, tenants through. And this is how they build relationships. So that's so important. So just to review that process again, right? Client calls, get to know their situation, research the property, book the presentation, do the presentation, prepare the property, do a great job of marketing the property, You list the property and fill out all the documentation using Skyslope to make sure that process is smooth. Take in offers, applications, review them, make sure to check and make sure they're real people, real references, and real income. Firm up the deal, and then get that standard form of lease signed and everyone all on the same page. Submit all that documentation to our office, of course, with a sales information sheet, and then make sure you do that after service care. And that wraps up the full process of working with a landlord.